She was 8 months pregnant, lying in a hospital bed, fighting to save her baby's life. And that's when she heard her husband say, "I love you." But those words weren't meant for her. She forced her eyes open. And what she saw destroyed everything she thought she knew about her marriage. Her
Daniel,
millionaire husband,
I can explain.
kissing another woman, right
It
there,
wasn't what it
at
looked
the foot of her
like.
hospital bed. But here's what he didn't know. Her brother was standing right behind him, watching everything. And her brother? He was a surgeon at that very hospital. What happens next will shock you. Because this isn't just a story about betrayal. It's about a woman who lost everything. Her trust, her marriage, her sense of self, and how she rebuilt it all, piece by piece, while protecting the one thing that mattered most, her baby girl. Stay with me until the end, because the revenge she got, it wasn't what anyone expected. "I love you." 3 words, his voice, but not meant for me. The fluorescent lights hummed above my hospital bed. That awful, sterile buzz that never stops, never rests. Like a mosquito trapped in your bedroom at midnight. The sound had become my constant companion over the past 72 hours. My mouth tasted like copper in fear. The medication they'd given me for the preeclampsia made everything feel like swimming through honey. Thick, slow, disconnected from reality. 34 weeks pregnant, high risk. The doctors said I needed to stay calm, keep my blood pressure down. Think happy thoughts. Happy thoughts. What a joke that seemed now. I heard Grant's voice again, softer this time, almost tender, the voice he used to use with me, back when I still believed he meant it. "I've missed you so much. This week has been absolute torture being away from you." My heart swelled for just a moment, a reflex. 8 years of marriage had conditioned me to respond to that voice, to believe in it, to trust it. He came. My husband came to see me. Maybe he did care after all. Maybe I'd been wrong about the distance between us lately. Maybe the coldness I'd been feeling was just stress, just pregnancy hormones, just my imagination running wild. I forced my heavy eyelids open. The room came into focus slowly, like a photograph developing in reverse. White walls first, then the beeping monitors with their green lines and red numbers. The plastic chair where my mother had been sitting for hours before she left to get coffee. The wilting flowers on the nightstand. The get well cards I hadn't read. The water pitcher sweating in the artificial warmth. And Grant, my husband of 8 years, stood at the foot of my bed, his back to me, his broad shoulders in that charcoal Armani suit I'd picked out for his birthday last year. The one that cost $3,000. The one he said made him feel like a king. His arms were wrapped around a woman with auburn hair, long, wavy. The kind of hair that takes an hour to style but looks effortless. Her manicured fingers clutched his expensive suit jacket. Red nails, the color of fresh blood. Vanessa Cole, his executive assistant. The woman who'd been at every company event for the past 3 years. The woman who always stood a little too close, laughed a little too hard at his jokes, looked at him a little too long when she thought no one was watching. I'd mentioned it once, 2 years ago, asked Grant if there was something going on. He'd laughed, called me paranoid, said Vanessa was like a sister to him, said I was being ridiculous, said the pregnancy hormones from our first attempt at IVF were making me see things that weren't there. I believed him, because that's what wives do. That's what I'd been taught to do. Their lips met, soft, familiar. This wasn't a first kiss. This wasn't stolen or impulsive or accidental. This was a 1,000th kiss, the kind that comes from years of practice. Years of hiding, years of lying to my face while looking me straight in the eyes. The heart monitor began beeping faster. 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 I couldn't breathe. Couldn't move. Couldn't make a sound. My throat closed up like someone had wrapped invisible hands around it. Squeezing. Crushing. My hands flew to my belly where our daughter kicked against my palms. Hard. Insistent. As if she knew. As if she felt her mother's heart shattering into a million pieces. As if she was trying to tell me something I should have known all along. The teacups shattered against linoleum. The sound was explosive in the quiet room. Ceramic fragments skittering across the floor. Hot liquid spreading in a brown puddle. the smell of lavender filling the air. Grant spun around. His face cycled through expressions like a slot machine searching for the right combination. Surprise first, the wide eyes and parted lips of someone caught doing something they shouldn't. Then fear, real fear. The kind that makes your skin go pale and your hands start to shake. Then that familiar mask of control. The one he wore in boardrooms when negotiations got tough. The one he wore when investors asked hard questions. The one he wore when he lied. I knew that mask. I just never realized what it meant before. My brother Daniel stood frozen in the doorway, still in his surgical scrubs. The blue fabric spotted with what I hoped was just coffee. His cap pushed back on his forehead. His surgical mask hanging loose around his neck. The scattered remains of my favorite lavender tea pooled at his feet. He'd been bringing it every day since I was admitted, sometimes twice a day, because he knew it calmed me, because that's what brothers do. Daniel's eyes found mine across the room. Dark brown, like our father's, like mine. I was awake, he could see that, and he knew I saw everything. Tears streamed silently down my cheeks. I couldn't stop them, couldn't even wipe them away. My arms felt like they weighed 1,000 pounds each. The silence stretched for what felt like hours. In reality, it was probably 3 seconds. Daniel. Grant's voice was smooth, practiced, the voice of a man who'd talked his way out of 1,000 difficult situations. This isn't what it looks like. It's never what it looks like. That's what guilty people always say. My brother didn't respond to Grant. His gaze stayed locked on mine. I saw the fury building behind his eyes, the protective rage that had always been there since we were children. Since the day Tommy Richardson pushed me off the swings in 2nd grade and Daniel gave him a black eye. Daniel was 4 years older, had always been my defender, my champion, the one who taught me to ride a bike, who scared away the monsters under my bed, who held my hand at our father's funeral when I was too broken to stand. Get out. Daniel's voice was surgical, precise, deadly calm. The voice he used in the operating room when something went wrong, when lives hung in the balance. Get out of my sister's room, now. Grant stepped on away from Vanessa. She had the decency to look embarrassed. Her lipstick was smeared, the same shade of red I'd seen on Grant's collar last month, the same shade on his coffee cup a few weeks before that, the stains he'd blamed on clients, on networking events, on accidental bumps in crowded rooms. Lies. All of it. Every single excuse. Let's not be dramatic, Grant said. He straightened his tie, adjusted his cufflinks, those nervous habits I'd noticed years ago but never fully understood. Vanessa was upset about a work situation. I was comforting her. That's all this is. Comforting her, with his tongue down her throat, at his pregnant wife's hospital bed, while I fought to keep his daughter alive. The audacity was almost impressive. Almost. I finally found my voice. It came out as barely a whisper, broken and raw, like someone had taken sandpaper to my vocal cords. 34 weeks, Grant. He turned to look at me. Had the audacity to look annoyed that I was conscious, that I'd witnessed his betrayal, that I'd ruined his moment with his mistress. I'm lying here trying not to lose our daughter, fighting every single day to keep her safe, to keep her alive. And you brought her here. The heart monitor screamed. The numbers on the screen climbed dangerously high. 160 over 110, 170 over 115. Nurses rushed in. Someone shouted for a doctor. Hands adjusted monitors and IV lines. Voices spoke in urgent medical code I didn't understand. Daniel grabbed Grant's arm. His grip looked painful, his knuckles white with the force of it. Security is on the way. You can walk out with dignity or be dragged out like the trash you are. Your choice. Vanessa slipped past them toward the door. Smart woman, getting out before things got worse. Her heels clicked against the linoleum as she disappeared around the corner. Grant shook off Daniel's hand, straightened his jacket, adjusted his tie again. Always adjusting, always performing. This isn't over, he said to me. His voice had changed. Harder now, the charm stripped away. We'll talk when you're feeling better, when you're thinking clearly, when you're not being hysterical. Hysterical, the word men use when women react appropriately to being betrayed. When I'm thinking clearly, as if I'd hallucinated what I just saw, as if pregnancy hormones had made me imagine my husband kissing another woman right in front of me. Security arrived. Two large men in dark uniforms who treated Grant with far more respect than he deserved. Rich men always got treated with respect, even when they were destroying their families in hospital rooms. Mr. Morrison, we need you to come with us. I know the chief of this hospital, Grant said. We golf together. He's a personal friend. Oh, that's nice, sir. You can call him from the lobby. As Grant was escorted out, he paused at the doorway, turned back to face Daniel. His expression had changed again. Something ugly underneath now. Something I'd only glimpsed before in moments of frustration. In arguments he thought he'd won. You'll regret this, he hissed. I'll destroy your career. One phone call, that's all it takes. I have friends on every hospital board in this city. Daniel leaned close, whispered something only Grant could hear. Grant's face went white, actually white, like someone had drained all the blood from his body in one swift moment. Then he was gone. The nurses worked around me, checking vitals, adjusting medications, speaking in calm, soothing tones that didn't match the panic I could see in their eyes. Blood pressure is stabilizing, one of them said. Baby's heartbeat is strong. She's okay. They're both okay. Daniel came to my bedside, took my hand in both of his. His fingers were warm and steady, a surgeon's hands, hands that save lives every day. I'm sorry, I said. The words came out broken. I'm so sorry you had to see that. I'm so sorry you had to stop. His voice cracked, just slightly, just enough to show me he was human underneath the professional calm. Don't you dare apologize for what he did. Don't you ever apologize for his choices. The medication they gave me started to work. My blood pressure slowly dropped. The baby's heartbeat steadied on the monitor. Strong, consistent, oblivious to the chaos outside my womb. My hand moved to my belly, protective, automatic, the same gesture every mother makes when her world threatens to collapse, when everything she thought she knew turns out to be a lie. I would protect her, no matter what happened next, even if I couldn't protect myself. Daniel pulled up the plastic chair, the one my mother had been using. He sat down beside me and didn't let go of my hand. He wasn't going anywhere, not tonight, not ever. What did you say to him? I asked. At the end, what did you whisper? Daniel's jaw tightened, a muscle twitched near his temple. I told him I know people, people who can make his life very uncomfortable, people who don't care how much money he has or who he golfs with. Do you actually know people like that? A ghost of a smile crossed his face. No, but he doesn't know that, and the fear in his eyes was worth the lie. I laughed. It hurt. Everything hurt. My chest, my heart, my belief in love and marriage and happy endings. But I laughed anyway. The fluorescent lights kept humming. The monitors kept beeping. The world kept spinning on its axis even though mine had just stopped. 8 years of marriage. 8 years of building a life together. 8 years of believing I was loved and cherished and valued. All of it was a lie. Every anniversary, every birthday, every whispered I love you in the darkness. I stared at the ceiling, counted the tiles, 47. I'd counted them before. During the long nights when sleep wouldn't come. When worry about the baby kept me awake. Now I had something else to keep me awake. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, a text from Grant. We need to talk. This is a misunderstanding. I can explain everything. Please don't do anything rash. Think about our daughter. Think about our family. Our family. The one he'd just destroyed. The one he'd been lying to for God knows how long. I deleted the text without responding. There was nothing to explain. Nothing to misunderstand. I saw what I saw. His lips on hers. His arms around her. That look of tenderness that used to be reserved for me. My husband kissed his mistress at my hospital bed, and my brother witnessed everything. Whatever came next, there was no going back, no pretending, no more comfortable lies. The baby kicked again, hard this time, right under my ribs, like she was agreeing with me. I know, I whispered to her. I know. Everything is going to change now, but we're going to be okay. I promise you, we're going to be okay. Daniel squeezed my hand. You're not alone in this. Whatever you decide to do, however you want to handle it, I'm here. Mom is here. Shelby will be here the second she finds out. I believed him. My brother had never lied to me. Not once in 32 years. Grant had lied to me every single day for 8 years, maybe longer. The difference was stunning and heartbreaking and somehow clarifying. I closed my eyes, let the medication pull me towards sleep. Tomorrow would bring questions, decisions, confrontations I wasn't ready for. But tonight I would rest. Tonight I would mourn the marriage I thought I had. Tomorrow I would start figuring out how to survive the one I actually got. The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and dying flowers. 3 days had passed since the kiss. 72 hours of silence from Grant. 72 hours of staring at the ceiling and replaying every moment of my marriage through new eyes. Someone had sent an arrangement of lilies. White ones. The kind they put on caskets. The card said, "Get well soon," in handwriting I recognized. Amanda, Grant's other secretary, the one who handled scheduling and travel arrangements, the one who probably had no idea her boss was sleeping with her colleague. Or maybe she did know. Maybe everyone knew except me. Maybe I'd been the last one to figure out what was happening in my own marriage. The lilies were dying, their petals browning at the edges, their stems going soft in the water. A perfect metaphor for my life. My mother sat in the plastic chair by the window. Her knitting needles clicked in a steady rhythm. Soothing, familiar. The same sound from my childhood. From sick days home from school. From long afternoons on the porch. She was making baby booties, yellow ones, because we supposedly didn't know the gender yet. Actually, we did know. Grant wanted a boy, insisted on it, made comments about how a son would carry on the Morrison name. How a daughter would be fine, but a son would be better. So I told the doctor to keep it secret. My small rebellion. My tiny act of defiance in a marriage that left so little room for my own choices. A girl. We were having a girl. Grant would probably be disappointed. Would probably blame me somehow. That's what he did. Everything was always someone else's fault. Mama. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Hollow. Like someone had scraped out everything inside me and left just the shell. How long did you know? The clicking stopped, just for a heartbeat, then resumed. Know what, sweetheart? Don't, my voice cracked, the facade I'd been maintaining for 3 days starting to crumble. I can hear it when you lie. Your voice goes up at the end. It always has, ever since I was little. Eleanor Harper set down her knitting, smoothed her skirt with hands that looked older than I remembered. When had my mother gotten old? When had those wrinkles appeared around her eyes? She took a long breath. The kind you take before delivering bad news. The kind she took before telling me Dad's cancer was terminal. I suspected 6 months ago, at your anniversary dinner. 6 months, half a year of suspicion, half a year of watching her daughter be fooled. Why didn't you say anything? What would I have said? Mama's voice was gentle, not defensive, sad. That I didn't like the way your husband looked at his phone? That I noticed he didn't look at you anymore? That something felt wrong but I couldn't prove it? She paused, let the words settle. You would have defended him, baby. You always defended him. Every time I raised concerns about how much he traveled, every time I mentioned he seemed distant, you had an explanation ready. She was right, I would have. I did have explanations ready. He works hard. He's building an empire. He's stressed about the quarterly reports. He's tired from the time zone changes. He's just not demonstrative in public. He shows his love in other ways. Excuses, all of them. Comfortable lies I told myself to avoid the uncomfortable truth. The way he checked his watch when you talked, Mama continued. Her needles were still, her eyes fixed on something far away. That's what really bothered me. The way he'd look at his watch like he was counting down until you finished speaking. I remembered that, had noticed it too, had told myself it was a businessman's habit, always aware of time, always thinking about the next meeting. The way he interrupted to redirect conversations to himself, Mama said. The way he complimented you most when other people were watching, like it was a performance. Each observation landed like a small knife, precise, accurate, devastating. I thought he loved me. I know you did, baby, I know. The door burst open. Shelby Dawson swept in like a hurricane in designer jeans. My best friend since freshman orientation at Duke. The woman who'd held my hair when I had food poisoning junior year. Who'd talked me through every heartbreak before Grant. Who'd stood beside me at my wedding. She was carrying a paper bag and wearing an expression that could kill. I never liked him anyway. She dropped into the chair on the other side of my bed. Actually, that's not true. I liked him fine at first. He was charming, successful, good-looking. I understood the appeal. What changed? I started paying attention. Shelby pulled dark chocolate from the paper bag, the expensive kind with sea salt. My favorite, if I remember. You know what I noticed after about 6 months? I shook my head. He never asked you questions. What do you mean? In 8 years, I never once heard Grant ask about your day and actually listen to the answer. He'd ask, you'd start to answer, then he'd interrupt with something about himself. His deal, his meeting, his golf game, his whatever. I thought back, tried to remember a single conversation where Grant had truly listened, where he'd followed up, where he'd remembered what I said and brought it up later. I couldn't think of one. He talked at you, Shelby continued. Not with you. There's a difference. And I kept hoping you'd notice. But you were so in love, so determined to make it work. I absorbed this, reframed 8 years of marriage through new eyes. The small things I'd dismissed, the dismissive comments disguised as jokes, the way he'd roll his eyes when I talked about my work before I gave it up, the way he'd check his phone during dinner, during movies, during conversations about our future, the way he'd suggest I didn't need to work, didn't need my own friends, didn't need anything outside our marriage. Isolation. That's what it was. He'd been isolating me, slowly, methodically, until my whole world revolved around him. I was a prop, and the realization hit me like a physical blow, like someone had punched me in the chest. A beautiful, educated, well-connected prop. Shelby squeezed my hand. You were never just a prop. You were Natalie Harper, smart, kind, capable of so much more than he let you be. He didn't let me be anything. I chose to shrink. You chose to make your marriage work. You chose to believe the best about your partner. That's not weakness. That's love. It's not your fault he didn't deserve it. Was there a difference? I wasn't sure anymore. The lines between love and foolishness felt blurry, but one thing was becoming clear. I'm not crazy. I knew something was wrong. For years, I knew. The words echoed in my mind, a validation I desperately needed. I'd felt it, the distance, the coldness, the sense that I was performing a role in someone else's play, reading lines someone else had written. I told myself it was normal. All marriages go through phases. All relationships have rough patches. You work through it, you stay committed, you don't give up. But this wasn't a rough patch. This was a carefully constructed lie. And I'd been too blind, too trusting, too in love to see it. Daniel arrived in the late afternoon, still in his scrubs. He'd been in surgery all morning. A pediatric case. He never told me the details, but I could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight he carried. I've been making calls, he said. Pulled a chair close to my bed, spoke in a low voice even though Mama and Shelby had stepped out for coffee. Quiet inquiries among colleagues. About what? About Vanessa Cole. He paused, the kind of pause that comes before bad news. She's not just his assistant, Nat. I braced myself. What else could there possibly be? She's been on his payroll for 3 years. You knew that. But here's what you didn't know. Daniel pulled out his phone, scrolled through some notes. She was also on the payroll of Morrison Holdings 6 months before you even met Grant. The implication took a moment to sink in. My brain felt slow, sluggish, like it didn't want to process what he was saying. 6 months before we met. That means when Grant Morrison swept you off your feet at that charity gala, when he called your meeting fate, when he said he noticed you across the room and felt drawn to you like a magnet. Daniel's voice was careful, controlled, laying out facts like he was presenting to a medical board. He already knew exactly who you were. I remembered that night, the spring gala for children's cancer research, 3 years after Dad died. We were honoring his memory, his contributions to medical technology, the devices he'd invented that had saved thousands of lives. I'd worn a blue dress. Mama had helped me pick it out, said it brought out my eyes. Grant appeared from nowhere, handsome in his tuxedo, dark hair slicked back, a smile that made my knees weak. He asked me to dance, said he'd noticed me across the room, said he couldn't take his eyes off me. I thought it was romance, serendipity, love at first sight, the kind of thing you read about in books. Your family's medical patents, Daniel continued. Dad's legacy, the Harper name in healthcare circles, the company worth $200 million that you were set to inherit. $200 million. That's what Harper Medical Technologies was valued at when Dad died. More now, much more. He knew exactly what you were worth, Daniel said. Down to the penny. He did his research, sent his assistant to scope you out, to learn your habits, your favorite charity, your dress size. I thought I was chosen. My voice was barely a whisper. I was acquired, like a company, like an asset, like a piece of property to add to his portfolio. The heart monitor beeped steadily, mocking me with its calm rhythm, reminding me that I needed to stay calm, that my daughter needed me to stay calm. Daniel's phone buzzed. He glanced at it. His expression changed, went from concern to something darker. There's more. How can there possibly be more? I had a friend in hospital administration look something up. A favor, off the record. Daniel's jaw tightened. Vanessa Cole checked into this hospital as a patient 3 weeks ago. For what? A long silence, the kind that stretches like taffy, the kind that makes your heart pound in your ears. Prenatal care. Daniel's voice was flat, emotionless, the way he got when he was trying not to feel something. She's 11 weeks pregnant, Nat. The room spun. The ceiling tiles blurred together. My hands flew to my own belly where our daughter kicked against my palms. Strong, insistent, alive. My husband's mistress was carrying his child too. 11 weeks pregnant, which meant she conceived while I was bedridden, while I was fighting to keep our daughter alive. While I was trusting my husband to support me through the hardest time of my life, he was making another baby with another woman while telling me he loved me, while holding my hand through ultrasounds, while choosing paint colors for the nursery. Does he know, I finally managed to ask, about her pregnancy? I don't know for certain, but given how close they clearly are. Daniel trailed off, the implication clear. Of course he knew. How could he not? I stared at the dying lilies on my nightstand. Their petals were falling now, buried on the plastic surface like tiny white tears, just like my marriage, wilting, dying, despite all my efforts to keep it alive. What do I do now? The question was meant for myself, but I asked it out loud, hoping someone had an answer I couldn't find. Mama spoke from the doorway. I hadn't heard her come back. Whatever you want to do, we'll support you every step of the way. Even if I want to forgive him? Silence. The kind that says more than words ever could. Even then, Mama finally said, her voice steady but sad. But you won't. You're too smart for that. You're too much your father's daughter. She was right. I wouldn't forgive him. Couldn't forgive him. Not for the affair, not for the lies, not for the years of deception, not for bringing his pregnant mistress to my hospital room. But I didn't know what came next. Didn't have a roadmap for this. Didn't know how to be a single mother, how to rebuild a life built on quicksand. I looked around my hospital room, at the dying flowers, the beeping machines, the concerned faces of the people who actually loved me. Then I started reorganizing, moving the flowers to the windowsill, adjusting the pillows behind my back, straightening the magazines on the side table, lining up the water cups by size. The need to control something, anything, when everything else was spiraling beyond my grasp. Daniel understood. He'd seen me do this before. When Dad died, when I failed my first board exam in medical school before I switched to business, when I lost the pregnancy before this one, order from chaos, that was my coping mechanism, my way of processing pain. We should get a lawyer, I said finally, my voice stronger now, more certain. Someone good, someone who specializes in high-asset divorces, someone who isn't afraid of Grant Morrison. Daniel nodded. I know someone. My former roommate from medical school. His brother is Marcus Webb, best divorce attorney in the state. 93% win rate. Make the call. It was the first decisive thing I'd said in 3 days, and it felt good. It felt like taking back control, like refusing to be a victim. I wasn't just a betrayed wife anymore. I was someone with a plan, someone fighting back. The baby kicked again, strong and insistent, like she approved. I know, I whispered to her, and Mama's working on it. We're going to be okay, both of us, I promise. 3 a.m. The hospital was quiet. Only the hum of machines and the soft footsteps of night nurses broke the silence. The world felt suspended, waiting, holding its breath for something terrible to happen. I couldn't sleep, hadn't really slept in days. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them. Grant and Vanessa, their lips meeting, their bodies pressed together. At the foot of my bed, my phone glowed in the darkness. I scrolled through photos from the past 8 years, a digital museum of lies. Our first trip to Paris, the Eiffel Tower sparkling behind us. Grant's arm around my waist. I thought he was being romantic. Now I wondered if he was checking his phone in his other hand, texting her. Grant surprising me with the house, that massive colonial in the suburbs, 5 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a kitchen bigger than my childhood home. He'd said it was for our future family, for the children we'd have. What he'd actually meant, it was collateral, an asset. Another piece in his financial chess game. Our wedding day in the Rose Garden, I wore my grandmother's veil. Grant wore that smile, the one that made him look like Prince Charming, the one that made every woman in the room jealous of me. I searched his eyes in every picture, looking for the lie, looking for the moment he decided I wasn't enough, looking for a sign I should have seen. There, our honeymoon, a beach in Santorini, white buildings cascading down cliff sides, blue water stretching to infinity, the sunset painting everything gold and rose and amber. I was smiling at the camera, genuinely happy, glowing with newlywed joy, believing I'd found my person, my forever, my happily ever after. Grant was looking at his phone. I thought he was checking work emails, being the dedicated entrepreneur, building the empire that would support our family. I'd even thought it was admirable, such a hard worker, such a provider. I zoomed in on the photo. His sunglasses reflected the phone screen. I could see a text conversation. Couldn't read the words. But I could see the heart emojis, the kissy faces, the familiar pattern of a flirtatious exchange. Our honeymoon, the first week of our marriage. He was texting her on our honeymoon. I set the phone down, walked to the window, slowly, carefully. The IV line trailing behind me like a leash. The city lights blurred through tears I wouldn't let fall. Not yet, not until I understood exactly what I'd lost, what I'd never actually had. 26 years old. That's how old I was when I married him. Young, hopeful, so desperately in love that I couldn't see past his charm. He'd seemed like a dream. Handsome, successful, attentive. He remembered my coffee order. Black with 1 spur and a splash of cream. My favorite flowers. Peonies in spring, dahlias in fall. My mother's birthday, March 15th, the same day as the Ides of March. He'd made a joke about it once, about betrayal. Betrayal. He joked about betrayal. I almost laughed at the irony. Small details that made me feel seen, cherished, special, different from all the girls he'd dated before. Now I understood. He was studying me, learning what I needed to hear, what buttons to push, what strings to pull. He was closing a deal, and I was the product. I was a transaction, an acquisition, a strategic merger. The merger of Harper Medical Technologies with the Morrison financial empire. That's what our marriage really was. A business arrangement dressed up as a love story. My father built Harper Medical from nothing. Started in his garage with a soldering iron and a dream. Worked 18-hour days for 20 years. invented medical imaging devices that doctors all over the world relied on. By the time he died, he'd revolutionized the industry, saved countless lives with his innovations, built a company worth hundreds of millions of dollars. He left everything to me, his only daughter, his pride and joy, the one who used to hand him tools in the garage, who fell asleep on his shoulder during late-night brainstorming sessions, who believed she'd follow in his footsteps one day. And I handed it to Grant on a silver platter. "Sign here," he'd said 2 years ago. We were in his home office, the one with the mahogany desk and the leather chairs and the view of the pool. "This will make tax season easier. Keep everything in one portfolio. Simplify our finances." I signed without reading, because I trusted him, because he was my husband, because I believed marriage meant partnership, meant honesty, meant protecting each other. I signed away my inheritance, my father's legacy, my daughter's future, for a man who was sleeping with his secretary. The door opened softly, a night nurse checking vitals. "Can't sleep?" she asked. Her voice was kind, maternal. She was about my mother's age, had the same gentle way of moving. "Too much on my mind," she nodded. Didn't press for details. Just checked the monitors and adjusted my IV drip. Efficient, professional. "The babies are doing well," she said. "Strong heartbeat, good movement. She's a fighter." She gets that from her grandmother. The nurse smiled, started to leave, then paused at the doorway. "Whatever it is that's keeping you up," she said, "it'll look different in the morning. It always does. Not better necessarily, but different, more manageable." She left me alone with my thoughts. I pulled up more photos. Our engagement party, 200 guests at the country club. Grant on one knee in front of everyone. The ring was enormous. 5 carats, custom designed, a canary diamond surrounded by white ones. He'd said it reminded him of me. Unique, radiant, one of a kind. I'd cried when he proposed. Happy tears, overwhelmed tears. "I can't believe this is my life" tears. Now I wondered if the ring was bought with my father's money, if the whole proposal was part of the performance, if everything I thought was love was just manipulation. Probably. Grant never spent his own money when someone else's would do. That was one of his business philosophies. He told me once, "Use other people's resources whenever possible." I thought he meant investors, business partners, leverage. He meant me. Morning brought Grant's attorney, Richard Ashford, a thin man in an expensive suit who smelled like old money and bad intentions. He had a briefcase, an assistant, a way of looking at me that made me feel like a problem to be solved. "Mrs. Morrison." He didn't offer his hand, didn't pretend this was a friendly visit. "My client wishes to handle this matter discreetly." "Does he now?" "For the sake of your unborn child, for the sake of your family's reputation. For everyone's benefit, really." He slid papers across my bed tray, legal documents, dense paragraphs of careful language, words designed to confuse and intimidate. "What is this?" "A post-nuptial agreement. Mr. Morrison is offering a generous settlement. Very generous, under the circumstances." "Under what circumstances exactly?" Ashford's smile was thin, reptilian. "The circumstances of your emotional instability, your tendency toward paranoid accusations, your documented history of pregnancy-related mood disturbances." Documented history. He was already building a case against me, painting me as the crazy wife, the hormonal woman who couldn't be trusted. "What exactly is my husband offering?" "The house in Wexford, monthly support of $15,000, a college fund for the child, health insurance continuation." "In exchange for?" "A non-disclosure agreement. You never speak publicly about the private matters of your marriage, and shared custody of the child." Shared custody with a man who kissed his mistress at my hospital bed, with a man who was fathering another child with another woman, with a man who had already started portraying me as mentally unstable. I deserved better than this. My daughter deserved better than this. "Tell your client," I said, my voice steady for the first time in days, "that I will not be signing anything in this hospital." The attorney's eyebrow twitched, just barely, but I saw it. Mrs. Morrison, I strongly advise you to consider, and when I do sign something, it won't be this. I pushed the papers back across the tray. They slid off the edge, scattered across the floor. White pages against gray linoleum. Ashford bent to collect them. His face was red when he stood. Angry, not used to being dismissed. You're making a mistake. Mr. Morrison can be very generous to those who cooperate. He can also be very difficult for those who don't. I'm familiar with both versions of my husband. Neither one scares me anymore. He left without another word. The door clicked shut behind him. Hard. Not quite a slam, but close. I reorganized my hospital room again. Moved the water pitcher to the other side of the bed. Arranged the get well cards by size. Folded the blanket at the foot of my bed into perfect thirds. Then unfolded it. Then folded it again. Control. I needed control. My phone buzzed. A text from Shelby. Lawyer appointment confirmed for Thursday. Marcus Webb, he's already reviewing your prenuptial agreement. Says it's airtight, whatever that means. I smiled. Despite everything. Because of everything. Shelby always knew how to make me feel less alone. The afternoon brought memories I didn't want. Couldn't stop. They crashed over me like waves, pulling me under, threatening to drown me. Our conception night, we'd been trying for 2 years, 24 months of negative tests, temperature tracking, ovulation predictions, hormone treatments that made me emotional and bloated and nothing like myself. Every month, the same devastation. Not pregnant, again. Still, 2 pink lines that never appeared. I started to wonder if something was wrong with me. If I was broken somehow. If my body was betraying me the way my husband was betraying me now. We'd done 3 rounds of IVF injections, procedures. Hope that felt more like torture each time. Then, finally, 2 pink lines on a stick. Grant had actually cried, pick me up, spun me around the bathroom while I laughed and protested that he'd make me dizzy. We did it, Nat. We're going to be parents. We're going to have a family. I'd believed him, believed we were a team, believed the baby would be the missing piece that made our marriage whole. Now I understood. He was already sleeping with Vanessa then. Had been for months, maybe years. The baby wasn't going to fix anything. Was never meant to fix anything. Our daughter was just another acquisition, another check mark on his list, another piece of the Morrison empire, the heir he needed to cement his legacy, to access more of my trust fund, to complete the picture of the perfect family, the Morrison heir. That's all she ever was to him. I felt sick, not from the pregnancy, not from the medications, from the realization. My daughter was conceived into a lie. Her father never wanted her as a person. He wanted what she represented. Legacy, succession, control. I wouldn't let that define her. Wouldn't let his deception become her story. She would know love, real love. The kind that doesn't come with conditions or calculations. The kind my father gave me. The kind my mother still gave me. The kind that asked nothing in return. Even if I had to give it all to her myself. The sun set outside my window, orange and pink and purple bleeding across the sky. Colors that shouldn't go together but somehow did. Beauty emerging from chaos. That's what I needed to remember. Beauty exists alongside pain. Hope persists through heartbreak. Life continues despite betrayal. My daughter would be born into a broken family, but she would also be born into love. Real love. Unconditional love. That had to be enough. It had to be. Daniel arrived with documents, stacks of them, thick manila folders stuffed with printouts covered in numbers and legal jargon and highlighted sections. He spread them across my bed like a general laying out battle plans. Morrison Holdings isn't as solid as it looks. His voice was low, urgent. I've had some people digging, forensic accountants, business analysts, people who know how to find what's hidden. How did you find these people? Patrick knows everyone. Patrick was Daniel's boyfriend, a corporate attorney at one of the biggest firms in the city. They'd been together for 3 years. He made some calls, called in some favors. I looked at the papers, graphs, spreadsheets, numbers that meant nothing to me. What am I looking at? Grant's leveraged everything. Daniel pointed to a column highlighted in yellow. The company, the houses, even the yacht he bought for your anniversary. The yacht, 42 feet of luxury. He'd named it Natalie's Dream, said it was a symbol of our future, of the adventures we'd have together. I'd only been on it twice, both times for company events, both times surrounded by investors and clients and people I didn't know. What do you mean leveraged? Mortgaged, used as collateral. He's borrowed against every asset he has. Daniel flipped to another page. And some assets that aren't his. My stomach dropped. I already knew what was coming. He's trying to expand Morrison Holdings, acquire 3 medical supply companies, build a healthcare empire. Let me guess, one of them is Harper Medical Technologies. Daniel finished my sentence. His voice was tight, controlled. Your father's company, your inheritance, the one you signed over to Grant 2 years ago. I didn't sign it over. I gave him power of attorney to manage it, to handle the business side while I focused on what? On being a good wife? On supporting his career? On pretending I was happy? He's been using Harper Medical as collateral for loans, Daniel said. Millions of dollars in loans, money that's supposed to be secured by your company, by your patents, by your father's life work. Can he do that legally? Daniel pulled out another document, handed it to me. My signature at the bottom, dated 18 months ago, authorizing the use of Harper Medical Technologies assets as collateral for Morrison Holdings expansion. Except it wasn't my signature. Close. Very close. The loops. The slant. Someone had studied my handwriting carefully, but the loop on the N was wrong, a little too tight, and the tail on the E was too short. Details I wouldn't have noticed if I wasn't looking, if I wasn't already suspicious. Someone forged my signature. Multiple times. Daniel handed me more documents, more forgeries, each one slightly different. Each one authorizing something I never would have approved. He's been doing this for at least 2 years, maybe longer. Fraud. My husband committed fraud against his own wife, using her dead father's company while she was pregnant with his child. The audacity was almost impressive, in a sick, twisted way. Can we prove it, that it's forged? A handwriting expert already confirmed it. Patrick's firm has the best in the country. She's willing to testify. The anger rose slowly, a heat building in my chest, spreading through my limbs, making my hands shake with something other than fear. For days I'd felt numb, devastated, broken. Now I felt something else entirely. Rage. Pure, righteous, clarifying rage. What else, I asked. What else has he done? Daniel looked uncomfortable, which meant there was more. Worse. Tell me. Shell companies, offshore accounts, money moving in patterns that don't make sense unless you're trying to hide something. He paused. The forensic accountants think he's been siphoning money from Morrison Holdings for years. Personal expenses disguised as business costs. Gifts to individuals who aren't his wife. Gifts to Vanessa. He'd been buying his mistress presents with company money, while telling me we needed to watch our spending, while suggesting I give up the charity board positions that meant so much to me because they were too expensive. How much? Conservatively, $2 million over 5 years, maybe more. $2 million, enough to fund 100 scholarships, enough to build a hospital wing, enough to change lives, wasted on a woman who was sleeping with someone else's husband. Marcus Webb arrived that afternoon. The divorce attorney Daniel had found. He was nothing like I expected. Not slick, not polished, not the shark in a suit I'd imagined. He was rumpled, tie slightly askew, coffee stains on his shirt cuff, gray hair that needed a cut, but his eyes were sharp, intelligent, the eyes of a predator who'd been hunting the same prey for decades. Here's the good news, Mrs. Morrison. He dropped into the visitor chair. Didn't ask permission, didn't waste time on pleasantries. Your prenuptial agreement is airtight, ironclad, the best I've seen in 20 years of practice. My father insisted on it. Smart man. He must have seen something in Grant he didn't like. Maybe he had. I remembered the conversation before the wedding. Dad asking questions about Grant's business practices, about his previous relationships, about his plans for the future. I'd thought he was being overprotective, paranoid, the concerned father who couldn't let go of his little girl. Now I understood. He was protecting me in the only way he could. What does the prenup mean for me? It means what's yours stays yours. Harper Medical, the patents, the properties you owned before the marriage, all protected. He can't touch them. And the bad news? Marcus leaned forward. His expression changed, harder, more serious. He's been creative, Mrs. Morrison. Shell companies, transferred assets, loans against your patents that you never authorized. He pulled a file from his battered briefcase. Someone forged your signature, repeatedly, over a period of at least 2 years. I know, Daniel showed me. Then you know we have grounds for criminal charges. Fraud, forgery, potentially embezzlement. Criminal charges. My husband might go to prison. Can you prove it? Marcus smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a man who'd been waiting for this fight his whole career. I've already started. And Mrs. Morrison, I'm going to enjoy every minute of this. We spent 2 hours going through documents, every forged signature, every shell company, every transferred asset, every lie Grant had told the banks, the investors, the board of directors, me. By the end, I understood the full scope of what he'd done. Grant Morrison hadn't just cheated on me. He'd stolen from me, used my name, my company, my dead father's legacy. And he'd been doing it for years, right under my nose, while I smiled for photos and hosted dinner parties and tried to be the perfect wife. Grant arrived unannounced that evening. Security called my room first this time. He says he needs to speak with you, says it's urgent, family matter. I thought about refusing, had every right to refuse, after what he'd done. But I wanted to see his face, wanted to watch him lie to me now that I knew the truth, now that I could see the puppet strings. Let him up, but security stays outside the door. He looked different somehow, smaller, older. The golden boy shine starting to tarnish. Natalie, he tried the tender voice, the one that used to work. We need to talk. So talk. Privately. He glanced at Mama, at Shelby, at Daniel. This is between us. My family stays. They're not. My brother stays. My mother stays. My best friend stays. My voice was steel. Anything you need to say to me, you can say in front of theme. He didn't like it. I could see the frustration building, the mask starting to slip. But he sat down, folded his hands, tried for reasonable. What happened the other day with Vanessa? I know how it looked. Do you? It looked bad, I understand that. But it wasn't what you think. Vanessa was upset about a family situation. Her mother is sick. Her mother died 7 years ago. Daniel's voice was flat. Car accident. I looked it up. Grant's face flickered, just for a second, then smoothed back into the mask. I meant her father. Her father is sick. Her father remarried, lives in Florida, plays golf 3 times a week. Daniel again, relentless. We checked. The mask slipped further. I could see the calculation happening, the mental gymnastics, trying to find another lie that might work. We can fix this. Grant changed tactics, abandoned the excuse, went for emotional. Whatever you think is happening with Vanessa, it means nothing. I love you. I love our daughter. We can get counseling, work through this. Like we worked through the forged signatures? His face went pale, just for a second, then recovered. I don't know what you're talking about. The documents, Grant, the loans against my patents, the signatures I never signed. I kept my voice calm, level, the rage under control. The $2 million you've siphoned from your own company. Silence, heavy, suffocating. Who told you that? Does it matter? It's all documented. Every transaction, every forgery, every lie. Grant stood. The charming husband disappeared. Something uglier took his place. Something I'd only glimpsed before. In arguments, he thought he'd won. In moments when he didn't get his way. You're making a mistake, Natalie. A big mistake. The only mistake I made was marrying you. I made you. His voice was cold now. Hard. the real Grant finally showing through. When we met, you were nothing. A sad little rich girl crying over her dead daddy. I gave you purpose, status, a life. You gave me lies. I gave you everything. And this is how you repay me? By listening to your pathetic brother? By hiring lawyers to dig through my personal finances? Your personal finances are my personal finances. That's what marriage means. Marriage means loyalty. He was shouting now, the mask completely gone. It means standing by your husband, supporting him, not stabbing him in the back at the first sign of trouble. Trouble? You call this trouble? I laughed. Couldn't help it. You kissed your pregnant mistress at my hospital bed, Grant. At my hospital bed. While I was fighting to save our daughter's life. Vanessa isn't... He stopped, caught himself. Too late. Isn't what? Isn't pregnant? I know she is. 11 weeks. Nay. Your second child. The one you're having with your secretary while your wife carries your first. The color drained from his face. Real fear now. Not for me, for himself. How do you know that? I know everything, Grant. Everything you thought you'd hidden. Everything you thought you'd gotten away with. He moved toward me, fast, aggressive. Daniel stepped between us. Time to leave, now. Don't touch me. Grant tried to push past him. Daniel didn't budge. I said leave while you still can. Something in Daniel's voice stopped Grant. Something that suggested this wasn't a bluff. That there would be consequences for crossing this line. This isn't over, Grant said. He was backing toward the door now, still trying to look in control. Failing. You need me, Natalie. You've always needed me. You'll come crawling back when you realize what you've done. He left. The door slammed behind him. I stared at my wedding ring. The 5-carat diamond caught the fluorescent light. Sparkled like it was mocking me. Like it knew the truth all along. I twisted it around my finger. Around and around. The metal warmed from my skin. Then I pulled it off, set it on the bedside table. The ring clinked against the plastic surface. A small sound, final. My finger felt light, naked, free. Daniel picked up the ring, examined it like a specimen under a microscope. What do you want me to do with this? I don't care. Sell it, throw it in the ocean. Give it to someone who still believes in fairy tales. Socias. He pocketed it. I'll hold on to it. You might want to sell it later. Help pay for the divorce attorney. I laughed. It hurt. My ribs, my heart. But I laughed anyway. Always practical. Someone has to be. The anger still burned in my chest, but now it had direction, purpose, a target. Grant Morrison thought he owned me, thought he could take everything and walk away clean. He was about to learn exactly how wrong he was. 3 a.m. again. The hospital never truly slept. But this was his quietest hour, the hour between emergencies, the hour when death and birth both preferred to arrive. I woke to pain, sharp, sudden, like someone had reached inside me and squeezed. Something wrong, something very wrong. The emergency button was in my hand before I consciously reached for it. Nurses flooded the room within seconds. Faces I'd gotten to know over the past week. Concerned, professional, trying not to look scared. Dr. Patricia Hartwell arrived in 5 minutes. My OBGYN since the beginning of this pregnancy. The woman who'd held my hand through every complication. Who'd told me the baby would be fine when I wasn't sure I believed it. Blood pressure is spiking. Her voice was calm but urgent. The voice of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. 190 over 120. Baby's heartbeat is irregular. What does that mean? She met my eyes. Didn't sugarcoat it. I appreciated that. It means we need to deliver. Now, tonight. But I'm only 34 weeks. She's not ready. I know. Dr. Hartwell took my hand, squeezed once, hard. But if we wait, we might lose you both. The preeclampsia is progressing too fast. Your organs are starting to struggle. The word hit me like a physical blow. Lose. Both. My daughter, my own life. Everything I'd been fighting for. Everything I'd been planning, all of it meaningless if we didn't survive the next few hours. Do what you have to do. Everything happened fast after that. Consent forms I barely read. IV adjustments I barely felt. The operating room being prepped down the hall. Daniel appeared at my side, still in his scrubs from an earlier surgery. Someone must have called him. Someone must have told him to run. I'm going to assist, he said, his voice steady but his eyes betraying fear. If that's okay with you. Who better to save my baby than my brother? He grabbed my hand as they wheeled me towards surgery. His fingers were steady. Mine were shaking. Promise me. The words came out broken, desperate. Whatever happens, if you have to choose, choose her. Promise me you'll protect her. Nothing is going to happen to either of you. His voice was fierce, certain, the voice of a surgeon going into battle. I've got you, Nat. Both of you. I've got you. The operating room was bright, so bright it hurt my eyes. White walls, silver instruments laid out in precise rows, masked faces everywhere. People I didn't know who were about to cut me open and remove my daughter. The anesthesiologist explained the epidural. I barely heard him, just nodded at whatever he said. Let them position me on the table. Let them do what they needed to do. The surgery was a blur of sensations, pressure, pulling, cold metal against skin I couldn't feel. Daniel's voice guided me through, steady, calm, professional. The same voice he used in his own surgeries. The voice that had saved hundreds of lives. You're doing great. Just breathe. She's almost here. Just a little more. Time stretched, contracted, lost all meaning. Then, a cry, thin and high and perfect. The most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. The sound of new life entering the world. She's here. Daniel's eyes crinkled above his surgical mask. I could tell he was smiling. Natalie, she's beautiful. She's absolutely beautiful. They lifted her briefly so I could see. 6 pounds, 2 ounces, early but healthy. 10 perfect fingers, 10 perfect toes. A full head of dark hair, her father's hair. But she would have my strength, my resilience, my name. They took her to the warming table, began their examinations. Nurses spoke in medical shorthand I didn't understand. Is she okay? My voice was hoarse, terrified. Is she okay? Is something wrong? She's perfect. Dr. Hartwell smiled behind her mask. Small but strong, 10 out of 10 on the APGAR. She's a fighter, just like her mother. The relief was overwhelming. I cried. Couldn't help it. Couldn't have stopped if I'd wanted to. My daughter was alive. She was healthy. She was here. Whatever else happened, whatever battles were still to come, that was what mattered. That was everything. Recovery room, 4 a.m., the quietest hour of the quietest night. They brought her to me, this tiny, perfect, impossible person I'd made. I held her for the first time, just the two of us, alone finally. The baby was so small, so fragile. Her whole hand wrapped around my finger, holding tight like she'd never let go. I hadn't named her yet. Grant wanted Morrison family names. Charlotte after his grandmother who died before I was born. Victoria after some great aunt I'd never met. Names for show, names that sounded impressive on trust fund documents. I looked at my daughter's face, the tiny nose, the rosebud mouth, the fist curled against her cheek. She was her own person already. Not a Morrison, not really. Rosemary, I whispered. I'm going to call you Rosemary, after my great-grandmother, who survived 2 world wars and 3 husbands and the Great Depression, who raised 5 children in a 3-room house, who lived to 97 and danced at her own 100th birthday party even though she didn't make it to the actual day. Great-grandmother Rosemary Harper, the strongest woman I'd ever known, the one who told me I could do anything, be anything, never let anyone make me feel small. That's who my daughter would be named for. I don't know what I'm doing, I told her. The words spilled out, honest and raw and terrified. I thought I'd have a partner for this, someone to share the midnight feedings and the first words and the skinned knees. I thought your father would be here. Rosemary slept, peaceful, trusting, completely dependent on a mother who felt completely lost. I thought we'd be a team. I thought he'd hold you like this, love you like this. I felt the tears coming again. I thought a lot of things that weren't true. The baby made a soft sound, a sigh, a dream. I'm scared. I admitted it out loud, to no one, to myself, to my sleeping daughter. I'm terrified of doing this alone, of making mistakes, of failing you in ways I can't even imagine yet. The tears came then, deep, ugly, the grief I'd been holding back for days, not just for the marriage, for the father my daughter would never really have, for the woman I was before I walked into that charity gala, for the future I'd imagined that would never exist. I cried until there was nothing left, until I was empty, scraped out, hollow. Then I stopped, wiped my face with the hospital blanket, looked at my daughter. But I won't let that happen. I won't let him break me. And I definitely won't let him break you. Rosemary stretched, her tiny fingers spread wide like a starfish, then curled again into fists, like she was already ready to fight. Starting over feels impossible. But staying felt worse, and I chose impossible. I picked up my phone, opened the Notes app, began typing a letter to my daughter for someday. Dear Rosemary, named for your great-grandmother who survived 2 wars and 3 husbands and still laughed every day. You were born into chaos, into betrayal and anger and fear, but you were also born into love, more love than you can possibly imagine. Your grandmother flew from Charleston the moment she heard. Your Uncle Daniel held my hand during surgery. Your Aunt Shelby has already bought enough baby clothes to dress triplets for a year. You have a family, Rosemary, a real one. Not the kind that looks good in photos but falls apart in private. The kind that shows up. The kind that stays. I'll tell you about your father someday. The truth, all of it, the good parts and the bad, because you deserve to know where you came from, even the broken parts. But tonight it's just us, you and me, learning to breathe together, learning to trust each other, learning to survive. We're going to be okay. I promise you. Whatever comes next, we're going to be okay. Love always, Mama. I saved the note, closed my phone, held my daughter close. The sun was starting to rise outside the window. A new day, a new life, a new beginning. I never wanted but was determined to make the best of. I wasn't ready, would probably never feel ready, but I would figure it out. One day at a time, one feeding at a time, one sleepless night at a time. Starting now, 2 weeks post-delivery. Charleston, Mama's brownstone on Meeting Street. The house smelled like magnolias and old books and the lavender sachets Mama kept in every drawer. The same smells from my childhood. From rainy afternoons doing homework at the kitchen table. From holidays with the whole family crowded into the dining room. Safe, familiar, home. Rosemary slept in the bassinet by the window. The afternoon light fell across her face like a blessing. She was so peaceful, so unaware of the storm raging around her small, perfect life. Papers covered the dining room table, legal documents, financial statements, evidence of Grant's betrayal stacked in neat piles. Marcus Webb had been thorough, very thorough. We have enough for criminal charges, he'd said during our last call. Fraud, forgery, wire fraud, embezzlement. The district attorney will be very interested. Criminal charges, federal charges. My husband might go to prison. The thought should have felt satisfying. Revenge, justice. All those things I'd fantasized about during the long nights in the hospital. It didn't. It felt like another kind of failure. Another ending I never imagined. Another dream turning to ash. The doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. Mama was out getting groceries. Shelby was at work. Daniel was in surgery. I checked the security camera on my phone. Froze. Regina Morrison stood on the porch, Grant's mother. The woman who'd spent 8 years making me feel like I wasn't quite good enough for her precious son. Regina in her Chanel suit and her perfect pearls. Regina with her cutting comments about my cooking, my decorating, my career choices. Regina who'd once suggested I was getting a bit wide in the hips during our first Thanksgiving together. What could she possibly want? I opened the door, kept the chain on, spoke through the gap. Mrs. Morrison. Natalie. She looked smaller somehow. Older. The perfectly maintained facade cracking at the edges. dark circles under her eyes that no amount of concealer could hide. "May I come in?" Every instinct screamed no. This woman had never liked me, had made that clear in 1,000 small ways over 8 years. She was Grant's mother, his defender, his enabler, but she was also Rosemary's grandmother. 5 minutes. I unhooked the chain, stepped aside, let the enemy into my mother's house. Regina walked past me into the living room, looked around at the antique furniture, the family photos, the evidence of a life built on love rather than money. She didn't comment. For once, she sat on Mama's antique sofa, hands folded in her lap, back straight, the posture of a woman who'd been taught to never show weakness. "I know what my son did. Do you? I know about the hospital, about the kiss, about that woman." Her voice was controlled, barely. I could see the effort it took. "About the other pregnancy. Then why are you here?" Silence, long and heavy. The grandfather clock in the corner ticked, each second stretching like an hour. "Because I raised him better than this." Her composure cracked, just slightly, just enough for me to see the pain underneath. "Or I thought I did. His father was—" She stopped, started again. "His father was the same way. The affairs, the lease, the absolute certainty that rules didn't apply to him." Her voice was bitter. Old wounds reopened. I thought if I loved Grant enough, if I gave him everything, if I protected him from every consequence, he'd be different. I didn't know what to say, didn't know there was anything to say. Regina reached into her Hermes purse, pulled out a manila envelope, handed it to me. "What is this?" "Copies of financial documents. Accounts Grant doesn't know I can access. Transactions that prove he's been moving Morrison Holdings money into personal accounts for years." I stared at the envelope, at the woman who'd given it to me. "Wait, no, because I won't let my granddaughter's inheritance be stolen." Regina finally looked at the bassinet by the window. Her face softened, something almost human flickering behind the Ice Queen facade. "By my son or anyone else?" His own mother was turning on him. I thought about refusing, about throwing the envelope back in her face, about the years of subtle cruelty disguised as concern. But this wasn't about me or her or even Grant. This was about Rosemary, about protecting her future, about making sure she had the resources she deserved. "Thank you." Regina stood, walked slowly to the bassinet, looked down at her granddaughter for a long moment, her expression unreadable. "May I?" I hesitated, then nodded. Regina picked up the baby with surprising gentleness, held her like she'd done it 1,000 times before. Like muscle memory from when Grant was small. "Hello, little one." Her voice was barely a whisper. "I'm your grandmother. We haven't been properly introduced." Rosemary opened her eyes, looked up at the face of this stranger, didn't cry, just studied her with that intense newborn focus. "She has the Morrison chin," Regina said. "Strong, stubborn, a ghost of a smile. She'll need that. She's a Harper too." "I know." Regina met my eyes. "That's probably a good thing. The Morrison stubbornness combined with the Harper integrity. She'll be formidable." It was the closest thing to a compliment Regina had ever given me. She handed Rosemary back to me, smoothed her skirt, straightened her pearls, put the armor back on. "I won't pretend we've ever been close," she said, "or that I approved of Grant marrying you. I thought he could have done better, found someone more appropriate." Appropriate meaning richer? Appropriate meaning someone who wouldn't challenge him, someone he could control. Regina paused. "I was wrong. He needed someone who would push back. I just didn't realize it until too late." She walked to the door, stopped with her hand on the knob. "I raised a monster." The words were quiet, painful. "That's what I have to live with. But that little girl in your arms? She doesn't have to pay for my mistakes. Or his." She left without another word. The door clicked shut behind her. I looked at the envelope in my hand, at my daughter in my arms. Strange alliances. That's what this was. Not friendship, not forgiveness, just mutual interest. Grant Morrison had finally made an enemy of everyone who should have loved him, even his own mother. Oliver Morrison wanted to meet Grant's cousin, his business partner, His closest confidant for 20 years. The man who knew all his secrets, or thought he did. Neutral location, a coffee shop in the suburbs where no one would recognize either name. Where wealthy people didn't go. I brought Daniel. Oliver brought a leather briefcase and a guilty conscience. He looked terrible, unshaven, red-eyed, the kind of appearance that came from sleepless nights and troubled dreams. I've looked the other way for years, Oliver tasted. His coffee sat untouched, going cold. The affairs, the creative accounting, the way he treated you. Why? Because he's family. Because Morrison Holdings needed his leadership. Because I told myself it wasn't my business what he did in his personal life. Oliver stared into his cup. I was a coward. I knew what he was doing was wrong. I just didn't want to deal with it. What changed? Oliver looked up. Met my eyes. I saw something there I didn't expect. Shame. He came to me last week. Said he needed a favor. Said I owed him. What kind of favor? He wanted me to testify against you in court. Oliver's voice cracked. He wanted me to say I'd witnessed you having mental breakdowns, threatening to hurt yourself, threatening to hurt Rosemary. The words hung in the air, heavy, devastating. Grant was going to claim I was an unfit mother, was going to try to take my daughter, was going to use lies and false witnesses to steal her from me. He's building a custody case, Oliver continued. He's already hired a private investigator to follow you. Document everything you do, everyone you see. Build a file that makes you look unstable. Daniel's hand found mine under the table, squeezed tight enough to hurt. He showed me the file, Oliver said. Photos of you crying outside a pharmacy. Photos of you looking disheveled at the grocery store. Descriptions of erratic behavior that were just normal things. Being tired, being emotional after giving birth. Being human, that's what Grant was calling erratic. Can he win with that kind of case? Against anyone else, maybe, but not against you. Oliver slid the leather briefcase across the table. Not with what I have. I opened it, page after page of documentation, financial records, email transcripts, text messages, photographs, everything Grant had done for the past 5 years. Every lie, every theft, every betrayal, all carefully cataloged and organized. Why are you giving me this? Because I'm tired of looking the other way. Because Rosemary deserves better than having Grant Morrison as her only parent. Oliver paused. Because my grandfather built Morrison Holdings to be something good. Something that helped people. And Grant has turned it into this. He gestured vaguely at the documents, at me, at the whole twisted mess. This isn't the company my grandfather wanted. This isn't the family legacy he worked for. Thank you. The words felt inadequate for what he was giving me, but they were all I had. Don't thank me yet. Oliver's face was grim. Grant doesn't know I'm here. If he finds out, he won't find out from me. Oliver nodded, stood up, left without touching his coffee. Daniel and I sat in silence for a long moment, the briefcase between us like in some waiting to be diffused. You okay? Daniel finally asked. No. I picked up the briefcase, felt the weight of it, the power. But I will be. Emergency meeting with Marcus Webb the next morning. His office was controlled chaos, papers everywhere, coffee cups multiplying on every surface, post-it notes covering the walls like colorful scales. But when he looked at what Oliver had provided, his eyes lit up like a kid at Christmas. This is everything, he said, flipping through pages, making notes. This is more than we ever could have hoped for. What does it mean for the custody case? It means he won't win, not even close. Marcus looked up, smiled that predator's smile. But it also means more than that. What? It means we can go on offense, file first, criminal charges for the fraud, civil suit for the forged signatures, and, he paused for dramatic effect, a press conference to control the narrative. Go public? Very public. Every media outlet in the state, every business journal, every news program that will have us. Marcus leaned forward. We make sure everyone knows exactly who Grant Morrison is before he can spin his story. I thought about it. The exposure, the scrutiny, my pain laid bare for strangers to dissect. He'll come after me harder. He'll try, but he'll be fighting on too many fronts: criminal, civil, public relations, his mother turning against him, his cousin providing evidence. Marcus shrugged. Even Grant Morrison can't win a war on that many fronts. When? A week. Give us time to prepare. Get everything organized. Make sure every claim we make is backed by documentation. I sat in my car after the meeting, engine off, hands on the wheel, staring at nothing. The parking garage was empty except for a few scattered vehicles, concrete walls, fluorescent lights, the smell of exhaust and old concrete. I pulled out my phone, texted Daniel, "It's happening. We're going public next week." His response came immediately. "About time. I'll clear my surgical schedule." I laughed, actually laughed, the first real laugh in what felt like forever. My brother, always ready to drop everything, always on my side. The press conference was scheduled for next Friday. 7 days to prepare, 7 days to gather my courage, 7 days to figure out what I wanted to say. I practiced my statement in the mirror that night, over and over, until my voice didn't shake, until the words flowed naturally, until I could say them without crying. My name is Natalie Harper. For 8 years, I was Natalie Harper Morrison. This is the story of how I discovered that my marriage was a transaction and how I finally learned to read the fine print. Rosemary cried from her bassinet, hungry again. She was always hungry, growing so fast. I picked her up, settled into the rocking chair by the window, let her nurse while I continued rehearsing. I'm not here for sympathy. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here because I have a daughter now, and I want her to grow up knowing something important. The baby's eyes were open, dark like mine, watching me, as if she understood every word. When someone wrongs you, you don't hide. You don't negotiate. You don't shrink to make their betrayal more comfortable. I looked down at my daughter, at this perfect person who depended on me completely. You stand up, you speak truth, and you trust that truth matters. That's what I would teach her, what I would show her, not just with words, but with actions, courage, integrity, the refusal to be silenced. Grant Morrison thought he could destroy me, thought I would crumble without him, thought I would take his deal and disappear quietly. He was about to learn exactly how wrong he was. The press conference was standing room only. Journalists from every major outlet, cameras on tripods, microphones bristling like a forest of metal flowers. The hungry buzz of people sensing something big was about to happen. The conference room at Marcus's firm had never been this full. People lined the walls, spilled into the hallway. Everyone wanting a front row seat to the downfall of Grant Morrison. Daniel flanked my left side, Mama on my right, Shelby behind me, Marcus Webb at the podium making introductions. I wore navy blue, not victim black, not aggressive red, strong but approachable, professional but human. A woman fighting for her daughter, not a scorned wife seeking revenge. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't waver. Not anymore. I was ready. Marcus presented the evidence first. Methodical, devastating, building the case piece by piece like a master architect. The forged signatures projected on a screen, side by side with my real signature. The differences highlighted, obvious once you knew to look. The financial records, money flowing from Harper Medical to Morrison Holdings to Grant's personal accounts. A clear trail of theft. The shell companies, names that meant nothing, addresses that led nowhere. All of them funneling money into Grant's pockets. The gifts to Vanessa Cole, jewelry, trips, a car, all paid for with company money, with my family's money. By the time Marcus finished, the room was silent. Stunned, the only sound the click of cameras and the scratch of pens on paper. Then it was my turn. I stepped to the podium, looked out at the sea of faces. Found Daniel's eyes. He nodded once. Steady, certain. You've got this. My name is Natalie Harper. My voice filled the room. Clear, strong, surprising even myself. For 8 years, I was Natalie Harper Morrison. I thought I had a partnership. I thought I had a marriage built on love and trust and mutual respect. I paused, let the words settle, made eye contact with the woman in the front row who was nodding slightly. She understood. What I actually had was a carefully constructed illusion, a marriage designed to give Grant Morrison access to my family's company, to my father's legacy, to the wealth I inherited from a man who spent his entire life trying to make the world better. The cameras flashed. The journalists scribbled in their notebooks. Social media was probably already exploding with live updates. My father, Robert Harper, invented medical imaging technology that has saved thousands of lives. He worked 80-hour weeks for 20 years. He missed vacations and birthdays and anniversaries to perfect his inventions. He built Harper Medical Technologies from nothing but a dream and a soldering iron in his garage. My voice cracked, just slightly. I let them see I was human. He left that company to me, his only child, his pride and joy, and Grant Morrison systematically stole it out from under me, forged my signature, took loans against my patents, siphoned money into his own accounts. I straightened my shoulders, lifted my chin. I'm not here for sympathy. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here because I have a daughter now. I held up my phone, showed a photo of Rosemary, 2 weeks old, sleeping peacefully, completely innocent. Her name is Rosemary. She's named after her great-grandmother, a woman who survived everything life threw at her and still found reasons to laugh every day. I set the phone down, looked directly at the main camera. I want Rosemary to grow up knowing that when someone wrongs you, you don't hide. You don't negotiate. You don't shrink yourself to make their betrayal more comfortable. The room was completely silent, hanging on every word. You stand up, you speak truth, and you trust that truth matters. The questions came fast after that. Rapid fire, aggressive, testing every claim. Did you have any warning signs before discovering the affair? What do you say to people who claim this is just a messy divorce? Has Grant Morrison responded to these allegations? I answered what I could, deflected what I couldn't, let Marcus handle the legal technicalities. By the time it was over, I was exhausted, drained, like I'd run a marathon while also giving blood, but also exhilarated. I'd done it, told my story, on my terms, in my words. No more hiding, no more silence. Grant's response came within hours. His own press conference, his own narrative, his own army of lawyers and publicists trying to spin the story. I watched from Mama's living room. Rosemary asleep on my chest. The television muted because I couldn't bear to hear his voice. His face was perfect, concerned, earnest. The loving husband worried about his troubled wife. The expression he'd practiced in front of mirrors for years. Subtitles scrolled across the bottom of the screen. My wife is clearly experiencing postpartum difficulties. Our family has been through a tremendous strain. I only want what's best for our daughter. Postpartum difficulties. He was actually trying to claim I was mentally unstable, that everything I'd said was the product of a sick mind, but the evidence was overwhelming. The documents spoke for themselves. His own mother's testimony, his own cousin's records, the forensic accountants, the handwriting experts. You can't gaslight everyone at once. Within 48 hours, the board of Morrison Holdings called an emergency meeting. Grant was removed as CEO, suspended pending investigation, walked out of his own building by security guards. His face was on every news channel, every business website, every social media platform. Millionaire CEO accused of fraud. Morrison Holdings in crisis. Wife alleges years of financial manipulation. Criminal investigation opened. I changed the channel, put on a nature documentary instead, watched elephants migrate across the African savanna, a mother leading her calf through dangerous territory, protecting her, teaching her, showing her how to survive. That's what I was now, a mother leading her daughter through a landscape full of predators. We would make it through. We would find safety. Together. 6 months passed. Rosemary grew, learned to smile, to laugh, to grab things and put them in her mouth, to roll over, to sit up with support. Every milestone felt like a miracle. Every new ability a gift. The legal battles raged around us like distant storms. Motions, counter-motions, depositions, discovery, hearing dates that got postponed and rescheduled and postponed again. Grant's lawyers threw everything they could at us, tried to delay, to obfuscate, to wear us down, but Marcus was relentless, and the evidence was overwhelming, and slowly, piece by piece, Grant's empire crumbled. Then finally, the custody hearing, family court, a building I'd driven past 1,000 times without ever thinking about what happened inside. Now I was about to find out. The judge was a woman in her 60s, gray hair, reading glasses perched on her nose, a face that had seen every kind of human cruelty and learned not to be surprised by any of it. I sat at the plaintiff's table with Marcus, my hands folded on the polished wood, my heart pounding so loud I was sure everyone could hear it. Daniel and Mama were in the gallery behind me. Shelby, Patrick, even Oliver Morrison, ready to testify if needed. Grant sat across the aisle, flanked by two lawyers in expensive suits. He looked thinner, older, the golden boy facade crumbling like wet paper. The hearing lasted 3 hours. Testimony, evidence, arguments, counter-arguments. Grant's lawyers tried everything. Questioned my mental stability, suggested I was a vindictive ex-wife, implied that I'd fabricated the forgery evidence. The judge wasn't having it. She'd seen the documents, heard the expert witnesses, connected the dots. Then Grant's attorney requested a recess. 20 minutes later, he returned with an offer. My client is prepared to agree to the following terms, he said, reading from a sheet of paper in a monotone voice. Full custody to Mrs. Harper, supervised visitation only, child support per the state guidelines. Full custody, my baby, mine. In exchange, Mrs. Harper will not pursue additional criminal charges related to the matters currently before this court. Marcus leaned close, whispered in my ear. What do you think? What should I think? He's surrendering, completely. That's unusual. Why? Because Vanessa Cole had her baby last month. A boy. She's already filed for child support. And the IRS is deep into an investigation of his tax filings. And Morrison Holdings is cooperating with the federal fraud investigation. Grant Morrison was fighting on too many fronts. He couldn't win them all. So he was surrendering this one, giving me what I wanted, what I needed, my daughter. Take the deal? Marcus asked. I thought about it, really thought. I could destroy him completely. Had the ammunition, had the allies, had the moral high ground, could pursue criminal charges that might send him to prison for years. But Rosemary was watching from Mama's arms in the gallery, and someday she would ask about her father. What did I want to tell her? That I crushed him? That I left nothing behind? That I was just as ruthless as he was? Or that I took what I needed to protect her and walked away? That I chose her peace over my revenge? That I refused to become the thing I hated? Take the deal. The papers were signed within the hour. Full custody, primary residence. All decisions regarding education, healthcare, religion. Rosemary was mine, completely, legally, forever. Grant didn't look at me as he left the courthouse. Didn't look at his daughter. Didn't say goodbye or apologize or show any sign that he understood what he'd lost. Just walked out, got in his car, drove away. I watched him go, stood on the courthouse steps and watched his expensive car disappear around the corner. Felt nothing. That was the strangest part, the complete absence of feeling. No triumph, no satisfaction, no relief, not even anger anymore. Just emptiness where the hatred used to be. He was irrelevant now, a footnote, a closed chapter. That was better than revenge, better than destruction. That was freedom. Harper Medical Technologies came back under my control a month later. The patents, the partnerships, the laboratory equipment, the legacy my father spent his life building. I walked into the boardroom as the new CEO, the same room where Grant used to hold court, the same long table, the same expensive chairs, the same view of the city skyline. But everything felt different now. The board members watched me, waiting, wondering what kind of leader I would be. Ladies and gentlemen, my voice was steady, confident, the voice of someone who'd survived the worst and come out stronger. I'm going to take Harper Medical in a new direction. What direction? One of the older members, a man who'd been on the board since my father's days. Back to the beginning, Back to why my father started this company in the first place. I outlined my plan, point by point, the result of 6 months of research and planning and dreaming. Affordable generic medications for chronic conditions, the drugs that people needed to survive but couldn't afford, partnerships with rural hospitals, the small facilities that serve communities with no other options, research grants for young scientists from underrepresented communities, the brilliant minds that never got a chance because they didn't have the right connections. My father built this company to help people, I said. Somewhere along the way, we forgot that mission. We got focused on stock prices and profit margins and market share. I looked around the table, saw recognition in some eyes, resistance in others. Starting today, we remember why we're here. We remember who we serve. Silence, long enough to make me nervous. Then the oldest board member started to clap, slowly at first, then faster, then others joined in. The vote was unanimous. After the meeting, I ate lunch in my father's old office, the room I'd inherited along with the company, the desk where he'd sketched his inventions, the chair where he'd dreamed his dreams, a sandwich from the deli downstairs, turkey and Swiss on rye, extra pickles, the same lunch he'd ordered every day for 30 years. I didn't check my phone, didn't scroll through emails, just sat with myself, comfortable in the silence. The view from the window was spectacular. The city spread out below, full of people living their lives, fighting their battles, winning and losing and trying again. I was just one of them now, not a victim, not a hero, just a woman figuring out who she wanted to be. I like who I'm becoming. The thought surprised me, but it was true. Not the naive girl who'd walked into that charity gala, not the perfect wife who'd performed her role so carefully, not the broken woman who'd cried in hospital rooms. Someone new, someone stronger, someone forged in fire. Rosemary would grow up with this mother, this example. That was worth everything. Every tear, every sleepless night, every moment of doubt and fear and rage. My daughter would see a woman who stood up, who fought back, who refused to be silenced. That was the inheritance that mattered. Not money, not stock options, not company shares. Courage. That's what I would give her. 1 year later, June 14th, Rosemary's first birthday, Mama's backyard had been transformed. Pink and gold balloons tied to every fence post. A banner strung between the magnolia trees. Tables covered in white linen and fresh flowers. The guest list was small but perfect. Daniel and Patrick, newly married, holding hands whenever they thought no one was looking. They'd had the wedding 3 months ago. Small ceremony, big party. Rosemary was the flower girl. She mostly ate the flower petals. Shelby with her twin boys, 3 years old and completely wild. They ran in circles around the yard, shrieking with joy, crashing into things. Pure chaos, pure love. Mama orchestrating everything from the kitchen, the same way she'd done for every family gathering since before I was born. Some things never changed. Oliver Morrison came, carrying a homemade cake that listed slightly to one side. First attempt at baking, he admitted when he caught my expression. Don't judge too harshly. It's charming. That's code for terrible. It's code for you tried. That matters more than perfection. Even Regina was there, standing apart at first, watching from the edge of things, still not quite sure of her welcome, until Mama walked over to her parent, handed her Rosemary. She's walking now, Mama said. Well, toddling, determined little thing, falls down every few steps but gets right back up, just like her mother. Regina held her granddaughter. Something shifted in her face. The walls coming down, the armor cracking. Hello, sweetheart, she whispered. Look how big you've gotten. Rosemary grabbed Regina's pearl necklace, tried to eat it. Those cost more than my first car, Regina said, but she was smiling. Actually smiling. She has expensive taste already. She gets that from you. Rosemary bounced between the two grandmothers for the rest of the afternoon, collecting affection from both, completely unaware that she was healing old wounds just by existing. That's what children do. They force us forward, make us let go of old grudges, focus on what matters instead of what hurts. I found myself alone on the porch as the afternoon faded. watching through the window as the party continued inside. Rosemary in the middle of everything, the center of attention, exactly where she belonged. Shelby joined me, handed me a glass of lemonade from the kitchen. You okay? Yeah. I was surprised to realize it was true. I actually am. Big day. 1 year of being a mom. 1 year of being a single mom. Shelby shrugged. Semantics. You're doing amazing. She's thriving. We stood in comfortable silence, watching through the window, the case, the joy, the imperfect perfection of family. You know, Grant filed for bankruptcy last week, Shelby said, casual, like she was commenting on the weather. I heard. And Vanessa left him, took the baby to her parents in Ohio. Apparently being with a broke man wasn't as appealing as being with a rich one. I heard that too. Shelby looked at me, curious. Does it feel good? The karma? The revenge? I thought about it, really sat with the question. Grant Morrison had tried to destroy me, had taken my trust, my money, my sense of self, had nearly cost me my daughter, had made me question my own sanity, and now he had nothing. No company, no family, no reputation, no future. Did it feel good watching him fall? No, I finally said. It doesn't feel like revenge and vendetta. What does it feel like? Consequences. I watched Rosemary toddle past the window, chasing Daniel's husband Patrick for reasons only she understood. His consequences, not mine to carry anymore. That's very evolved of you. I had a lot of therapy. Shelby laughed. I laughed too. I wasted so much energy hating him, I said. Months and months of it. Lying awake at night and imagining his downfall. Planning what I'd say when I finally got to confront him. And now? Now I just don't think about him much at all. Days go by without him crossing my mind. Sometimes weeks. Is that okay? Not thinking about someone who hurt you so much? I considered the question, felt my way through it. It's more than okay, it's freedom. Grant would always be Rosemary's biological father. That fact couldn't change. Someday she would ask about him, want to know the story, form her own opinions. That was her right, her journey, not mine to control. But for now, he was just a name on documents. A check that arrived on the first of each month. A face she wouldn't recognize if she passed him on the street. The beginning and end of his relevance to my life. Evening came slowly, the way it does in summer. Golden light stretching across the yard. The air cooling, the fireflies beginning to appear. The party wound down. Guests drifted away with hugs and promises to visit again soon. I carried a sleeping Rosemary upstairs to the nursery, the same room where I'd slept as a child. Same yellow walls, same window overlooking the garden, same feeling of safety. Different everything else. I settled into the rocking chair, the one my grandmother had used, then my mother. Now me. 4 generations of Harper women. Survivors, all of us. I rocked my daughter, hummed the lullaby Mama used to sing, her mother's lullaby, her grandmother's before that. Hey, Rosie, I whispered to my sleeping daughter. I want to tell you something I learned the hard way. The baby sighed in her sleep. Content, trusting, safe. The people who are supposed to love you won't always deserve you. Her tiny hand curled around my finger, holding tight even in dreams. And that's not your failure. That's theirs. I thought about Grant, about all the ways I'd twisted myself trying to be what he wanted. All the parts of myself I'd hidden or minimized or abandoned. Your job isn't to earn love, Rosemary. It's not to perform or achieve or prove yourself worthy. The nightlight cast stars across the ceiling, spinning slowly, a universe just for us. Your job is to recognize who's capable of giving real love, and to walk away from anyone who isn't. I stood, laid her gently in the crib, tucked the blanket around her small body. I'll teach you that. I'll teach you everything I know, how to be strong and soft at the same time, how to trust without losing yourself, how to love without disappearing. She stretched in her sleep, made a small sound, settled deeper into the mattress. And when you're old enough to understand, I'll tell you about your father. The whole truth, nothing hidden. I smoothed her dark hair, his hair, the only part of him she'd inherited. There were good parts, early on, before I understood what was really happening. Moments that felt real even if they weren't. The stars turned on the ceiling, round and round. But the best parts of you came from somewhere else. From me, from your grandmother, from a long line of women who survived everything life threw at them and still found reasons to dance. I walked to the doorway, looked back one more time. My daughter, my fresh start, my reason for everything. The prison door was unlocked the whole time. I was my own warden. That's what I finally understood. Grant hadn't trapped me, not really. I'd trapped myself. Stayed when I knew I should leave. Believed lies I suspected were lies. Accepted less than I deserved because I was afraid of being alone. Not anymore. I walked out of the nursery, down the hall, down the stairs, through the house where I'd grown up, out to the porch where fireflies danced in the darkness. My mother was there, rocking slowly, watching the night. She asleep? Finally, wore herself out being adored all day. Mama smiled, patted the rocker beside her. I sat down. We rocked in silence for a while, the crickets singing, the fireflies blinking, the old house settling around us. Your father would be so proud of you, Mama said finally. The way you handled everything, the way you're running the company, the way you're raising that baby. You think so? I know so. She reached over, took my hand. You're his daughter through and through, stubborn as a mule and twice as strong. I laughed, squeezed her hand back. I'm your daughter too. God help us all. We rocked together, mother and daughter, the same way we'd done when I was small and scared of thunderstorms. I was so angry for so long, I said. At Grant, at myself, at the whole world for letting this happen to me. And now? Now I'm just grateful for Rosemary, for you, for Daniel, for everything I have that I almost lost. Mama nodded, kept rocking. That's wisdom, she said, real wisdom. The kind you can't learn from books, only from living through something terrible and coming out the other side. I don't feel wise. The wise never do. A firefly landed on the porch railing, blinked at us, flew away. What happens now, Mama asked. What's the next chapter? I thought about it. The company to run, the baby to raise, the life to rebuild, so much still to figure out, so many decisions still to make. But for the first time in a long time, the future felt exciting instead of terrifying. I don't know exactly, I said, but whatever it is, I'm ready for it. I stood up, stretched, looked out at the garden my father had planted, the roses he'd tended so carefully, the magnolia tree where he'd hung my first swing, everything I'd lost, everything I'd found, everything I'd become. I'm going to be okay, Mama. She smiled, that smile that always made everything better. I know you are, baby. I always knew. I walked down the porch steps, out into the garden. Let the fireflies dance around me. Not the woman I was before Grant. Not the wife he'd tried to make me. Not the victim he'd left behind. Just myself. Finally, completely. Enough. The Harper Medical Technologies building had a new wing. The Rosemary Harper Center for Women's Health. Glass and steel and light. Named for my daughter. Dedicated to my mother. Funded by the sale of a 5-carat diamond ring and years of profits from a company that had finally remembered its mission. I stood at the ribbon-cutting ceremony, Rosemary on my hip. 3 years old now, and absolutely certain she was in charge of everything. The crowd stretched across the plaza, doctors and nurses, patients and families, politicians and philanthropists, everyone who'd helped make this happen. Daniel gave a speech about the importance of accessible healthcare. Patrick talked about legal protections for patients. Mama cried happy tears into a lace handkerchief. Then it was my turn. I stepped up to the microphone, Rosemary squirming in my arms, wanting down, wanting to run, wanting everything all at once. When my father started this company, I said, he had one goal, to help people. That's it. Not to get rich, not to become famous, just to use his gifts to make the world a little bit better. I paused. looked out at the faces watching me. Somewhere along the way, we forgot that. The company got big, the profits got bigger. We stopped asking who we were helping and started asking how much we could charge. Rosemary grabbed the microphone. "Hello," she shouted. The crowd laughed. "This one thinks she's the CEO already," I said, more laughter. "She might be right." I adjusted her on my hip, continued. "This center is a return to our roots. Every woman who walks through these doors will receive the care she needs, regardless of her ability to pay. Because that's what my father would have wanted, because that's what healthcare should be." I looked at the building behind me. All that glass, all that light. My father always said that the measure of a person isn't what they build, it's who they build it for. Rosemary was done, absolutely done with speeches and crowds and standing still. "Down," she demanded. "Want down." I set her down. Watched her toddle toward the big scissors for the ribbon cutting. Patrick scooped her up before she could grab them. "So let's cut this ribbon," I said, "and start helping people," which is what we should have been doing it all along. The scissors were heavy. The ribbon was red. Rosemary helped me hold the handles, though mostly she just tried to eat the ribbon. Snip! The crowd cheered, balloons released. A band started playing somewhere, and the Rosemary Harper Center for Women's Health was officially open. That evening I sat in my office, the sun setting over the city, orange and gold and pink. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Congratulations on the center. Saw it on the news. You've done something remarkable." Then another tita. "I know I have no right to reach out, but I wanted you to know that I think about Rosemary every day. I hope she's happy." Grant, I stared at the messages for a long time, my thumb hovering over the reply button. What was there to say? What words could bridge the gap between what we were and what we became? He'd stolen from me, lied to me, tried to take my daughter, left wreckage everywhere he went. And yet, he was still her father, would always be her father. That biological truth couldn't be erased, no matter how much pain surrounded it. I typed a reply, deleted it, typed another, deleted that too. Finally, I just blocked the number, put my phone away. Some bridges shouldn't be rebuilt. Some doors should stay closed. Not from hate. The hate was gone, burned away by time and therapy and the simple work of living. Just from the quiet certainty that the past belonged in the past. I had a daughter to raise, a company to run, a life to live. That was enough. More than enough. That was everything. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Daniel. "Dinner at Mom's tonight?" "Patrick's making his famous pasta." I smiled. Typed back, "We'll be there." "Rosemary's already asking for garlic bread." I gathered my things, turned off the office lights, headed home. Outside, the evening was perfect. Cool breeze, clear skies, the first stars beginning to appear. Rosemary would be waiting with Mama, probably covered in finger paint, definitely asking a million questions about everything. My daughter, my purpose, my joy. I walked to my car, drove through the city I'd grown up in, past the courthouse where I'd won my freedom, the hospital where I'd nearly lost everything, the church where I'd married the wrong man and didn't know it. Every corner held a memory, a ghost, a lesson. But they were just memories now, ghosts without power. Lessons learned. I pulled into Mama's driveway, saw Rosemary's face in the window, watching for me, waiting. She waved, both hands, her whole body vibrating with excitement. "Mama's home!" I could hear her through the glass. The loudest 3-year-old in Charleston, probably the loudest in South Carolina. I got out of the car, walked up the steps, opened the door, and got tackled by a small person who loved me with her whole heart. "Mama, I made you a picture. It's a horse, or maybe a dog. Grandma says it could be both." "I can't wait to see it." I scooped her up, carried her inside, let the door close behind me on the day and the past and everything that no longer mattered. Home. Finally, completely, home. And that's how Natalie Harper went from a broken wife in a hospital bed to a woman who reclaimed everything that was stolen from her. Her company, her dignity, her future. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button. It helps more than you know. Drop a comment below. Tell me, what would you have done in her situation? And if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on notifications. Because every week, I bring you stories of women who refuse to stay broken. See you in the next one.